The average solo GP is dead. Being handcuffed to a practice that only makes money while you're drilling crushes your freedom. Being trapped at the office is no way to experience life. And doing more fillings and crowns ain't the answer to freedom. Stop it. Freedom comes when your practice makes money without you. Freedom is choosing how many days and how you dental. Ready to forge your freedom? Then keep listening to become a super GP and super CEO. This is the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Let's go.
Hello, all you beautiful people, and welcome to what's sure to be the best episode of the Titanium Practice Podcast yet. I'm your host and personal freedom coach, Dr. Stephen Freeman. How y'all doing today? All right, again, before we get rolling, please, if you can hit that subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. And if you can take some time to leave me a review, I'd really appreciate that as well. Truly, truly does help in our rankings and getting the message out to more and more folks who you think may benefit from listening to this information. And last but not least, if you want to sign up for the Titanium Practice Insider, head on over to titaniumpractice.com and get signed up for the free insider newsletter that we have that goes out at the beginning of the month. All right, let's go. So today I'm going to talk about, it's a book, but it's also more generally what I want you to think about as a general concept that so many businesses have a problem with. And it's great because I observe this and you experience this at so many different businesses. It happens every day, and it's gotten worse since the whole hiring thing with COVID. Finding good people has always been an issue. It's always been an issue. Obviously, you know, the saying there's good help is hard to find has been around for a very long time and has gotten much harder to do ever since COVID. And what ends up happening is that you bring people into your organization and they actually make it more difficult for your customers to do business with you. It's crazy because you hired these people to help you do business, but in a lot of times they actually make it harder. And so the book is called WAYMISH, and it's actually an acronym for Why Are You Making It So Hard? And it's for me to give you money. It's by Ray Considine and Ted Cohn. I probably butchered that first name, but that's what it is that I've got for you. And so, again, more than even thinking about the book itself, is I just want you to think the concept of WAYMISH. And I just see it happen so often. I mean, I even think about it, and I don't go there very often at all. But, you know, and in general, there are so many stores that have greeters. And so you come in and they greet you. I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody who enjoys the greeter at the front of a store. And yes, originally I was going to say the first place that I remember doing it is maybe, you know, as a kid, I just remember Walmart having greeters. But then, you know, slowly but surely, I felt like that became much more of a thing of people that greet you as you come into the store. And in reality, a lot of the time, they actually get in your way. And so how crazy is that? Is you've just entered a business and they've already, like, they think they're actually doing a good thing by putting this greeter at the front. And in reality, a lot of the time, they actually make it much more off-putting. Like, they literally get in your way. Like, it's crazy. Like, you try to, like, I know what I'm doing. If I need help, I will be glad to ask you for the help. At least that's my experience. Having said that, there are so many roadblocks that we put up in businesses that stop people from being able to do business with us. And it's not necessarily just give us money, but at least be in a situation where they make it harder for you to do business with them. For example, there's a dental office down the road from me. And So we did a training once, and the training was that we were training on how to make phone calls. And so we were calling other offices in the area. Okay. Now, we did not make any appointments, but the idea was we wanted to see what other offices were doing to answer their phones. One of them in particular that jumped out at me is we called and said we were a new patient and wanted to make a new appointment. The lady who answered the phone essentially said to us, hey, Betty is the one that makes new patient appointments. She's not here today. We'll have to take your name and call you back so we can schedule your new patient appointment. Now, that may be extreme, but I don't know, because I've only called so many dental offices in my life to know this. I've interacted with other businesses and other medical professionals before, of calling offices before, and I've never had that experience. Having said that, how insane is that? One person to make appointments, and she ain't even in the office? So no one can schedule a new patient unless Betty happens to be there? Holy shit. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's if you're doing that, which I can't believe that you are, but if you are, stop. Do not do that. What do you think the person calling is going to do? Now, obviously, ours was, a test run. It was a test call. It wasn't a real call. But if that's a real patient calling, do you think they're going to sit idly by? They have blocked out a couple of... So back up. Think about it when you are trying to make an appointment somewhere. You have probably said, I don't actually want to do this. I wish the information could just be sucked from my head, and somewhere magically it has appeared on someone's schedule and I now have an appointment. And so that can't happen yet. So the next thing you have to do is you say, okay, I've got 5 minutes. I don't want to do this. You gear yourself up, and you have blocked out a couple of minutes of time to make this call to set up whatever appointment it is that you're trying to set up. You get up the gumption, you pick up the phone, you call that person, and they say you can't do the thing that you just called to do. Are you going to wait for that person? No. How incredibly pissed off are you? Because it's not like it's necessarily that hard, but no one wants to do this. No one wants to have to be on a phone and in some cases give insurance information and then your name and blah, blah, blah. What was your second grade's teacher? No one wants to have to give all that information. And so if you just made it harder for me, I am not going to sit there and wait for Betty to call me back on some day, which at that point in time, I'll have either forgotten or I don't care anymore, or it's inconvenient for me to make that appointment. What are you going to do? You're going to hang up the damn phone and you're going to call the next place on Google to make an appointment for whatever the thing is. I mean, how shitty of an operation is it that you only have one person that is making appointments and she ain't even there? I mean, if she's working 24 hours a day, I guess maybe that could be something that ends up working, but she's not even there. So, I don't know what to say. Obviously, I hope you're not doing that, but at the same time, you can't do that. And the next flip part of that is I don't know how many times my office manager has ever called a lab to make a payment. And they say, we'll use Betty again. Betty ain't here. Betty is not here to take your payment. Would you please call back on a different day, because Betty's out of the office right now for the next week because she's on vacation. What? This happens routinely with labs. So again, I hope you aren't doing that and you don't have one person that is taking payments, because when people want to give you money, it is time to take the money. I mean, that is exactly what the whole point is. The whole point is you need to make doing business with you as easy as possible. Speaking of making appointments, can people make appointments online with you? Okay? We have gone round and round with this in our office. Do you actually want to pick up the phone and call and make an appointment, or do you want to be able to go online and just pick your spot? You want to go online and just pick your spot. That's what we do with everything now. We go online to do everything. And so ultimately speaking, you need to make it as easy as possible for people to do business with you. Okay? So the concept starts to become is, where are there roadblocks in making doing business with you difficult? Where is it that there are spots that people get hung up about doing business with you? Do you make insurance confusing for the patient? Do you make treatment plans confusing for the patient for them? Do you make payment options confusing for the patient? Do you only offer procedures on particular days? Now, I will admit, I should say that I'm kind of a big proponent of, when you get into doing specialty procedures, of blocking out certain days. So when I first started implants, there was an implant day. When I did endo, there's an endo day. Ortho, there's an ortho day. But generally speaking, if you are just talking about doing general dentistry, how hard do you make it? Would there be a reason to have a crown day only? I guess you could make that argument if you're printing them and you want to be able to deliver crown. Because I kind of told you once I got into it, when I was doing CEREC, I would prep the crown. My assistant designs the crown. I go place an implant, place the implant, come back and seat the crown. And that was some good timing. So maybe your thing is you want to go cut another crown and you want to just bounce back and forth and do crowns all day long. But I will tell you that you are going to have a harder time in getting people to schedule with you if you are in a situation where you are limiting what days they can come in. Because remember, they don't want to come in. You need to always remember that point. They do not want to be there. And I think a lot of you probably do understand that, especially about dentists. They will look for any reason to not come in. And so if you have now said, well, I only do, say, fillings on Tuesday, well, I will go find the dentist who will do fillings on Monday because that works better for my schedule. And so ultimately, that's where working toward being open with associates, at least, potentially 7 days a week, helps, is because now you have removed roadblocks. Okay? You always want to make it as easy as possible. When we're answering the phone, the ladies are instructed to try to keep the new patient phone call to 2 minutes. And you never, ever put a new patient on hold. Ever. Never. For any reason whatsoever. Because they will hang up and they will go to the next office. They will. Because you have now just made it more difficult. But we want to make that intake of the new patient as easy as possible. Sure, come on in. We also instruct our front desk, If anybody ever asks if we do a procedure in our office, what is the answer? Why, of course we do. We're great at doing that. I have had on two different occasions, somebody asked me if we do dentures. And I don't like doing dentures. Now, I may want to get into it with this printing thing because now we can do them in like one appointment, which is pretty freaking cool. But I don't really like doing dentures. And the ladies up front in this particular situation when I was doing this knew to always say yes. Why, of course. Come on in. Great. Hey, come on in. They both wanted veneers. This was two separate occasions. And they both ended up signing up for 8-unit veneers. And yet, their first instinct on the phone was to tell the patient, no, he does not, because we know that he hates doing them. He being me. But we always want to make it easy to bring the patient in because sometimes they don't know what they're talking about. A lot of the time they don't know what they're talking about. I will be the first one to say, I am an idiot when it comes to cars. And I think I've talked about this before. I know nothing about cars. I know put gas in, push button to start, and then about every 10,000 miles, you get the oil changed on it and get the filters changed and the tires rotated. That is the extent of it. Okay? I know nothing beyond that. And some people will tell you that I should just turn in my man card because I don't know that. Having said that, my wife is pretty good with cars. So whenever we go somewhere and we got car stuff to talk about, it's great because the mechanic or the dealer will always look at me and totally ignore my wife. And I will need to tell them, don't talk to me about that. Talk to her about it because she is the one that knows. Because I have no freaking clue about any of that stuff. None at all. So obviously this isn't a discussion about cars, but the point is what I was getting at is the fact that your patients don't know jack squat about teeth, other than the fact that they chew with them and they smile with them and they don't want them to hurt. If they have satisfied those 3 requirements, they want nothing to do with you. So anytime you put up any kind of barrier, so think about your location. How well are you located? Are you easily accessible? Now, some of you may say, well, what do you want me to do? Change my location? And my first thought is, well, if it's difficult for you to get to, you're probably not very visible. And if you're not very visible, then you're probably missing out on a shit ton of patients. You would want to think about being out on a main road. Yes, it costs more. I get that. When we moved to our new location, and I had to learn this, but when we moved to our new location on the very main drag of our area, we increased the number of new patients we got per month by 100. Just by being in a totally different, more obvious location. We were tucked away before in a professional building, which a lot of you probably are, but then we threw ourselves onto the main drag and got 100 more new patients a month. Do you think that paid the mortgage on the building? Yes, it did. More than enough. And didn't have to spend an extra dime in advertising, and all of a sudden, I got a shiny new 12,000 square foot building. And just being on the main drag paid for it. It was all that needed to happen. But now all of a sudden I was easily accessible. We didn't have to explain, well, okay, the main drag, turn left, and then you have to turn left again, and then finally you'll be in the little business park, and we're on the 2nd floor, and if you can't get to the elevator, well, it's around that little barrier to the... Nope. We're the big white building on International. Oh yeah, I know exactly which one that is. Great. That's the conversation we have with our patient about how to get to us. Think about the conversation you have with your patients about how to get to your building. Is it more like my first one where we had to turn like 10 million times and then explain how to find the elevator and blah, 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 blah? Probably. But that's the progression you can go through in all of this. Okay? So what I want you to do is at some point in time, take a little bit of time when you got some downtime and walk through your office. Have you ever listened to any of the phone calls? Do you have that ability? I've talked to you before about using Weave. We use Weave. So Weave is all digital, so I don't actually have a phone service. Our phones are all done by Weave over the internet, so I have the internet bill. And all of our phone calls are recorded inbound and outbound. Okay? I'm not asking you to sit there and listen to a whole bunch of phone calls, but pick out some of them and listen to them. How do they sound? Do you like how they sound? Did your front desk make it easy? Did they sound pleasant? One of the best things I ever did is that all of our phones, which none of our phones at our front desk, they're all behind. We have a greeter at the front, and she greets people, and she's there to pay attention to them. They walk in, and it's a tiny little desk, and she gets up and she greets them and she shakes their hand, and she has no phone up there, and she is there to attend to anybody that is in the waiting room. And all the phones are off that desk, and they're all in the back. And all those phones in the back, so we've got like 3 phones downstairs, 2 phones upstairs, and then I've got 2 remote people. And they all have a mirror in front of them, because when they talk, I want them smiling. People want to do business with smiley, happy people. And so it may seem really corny to have that mirror, but if they catch themselves looking at that mirror and they're not smiling, they all automatically smile. And they tell me this all the time. And you can say it's dumb all you want, but people want to do business with a smiley, happy person. If your person's grumpy answering the phone, you are making it harder for the person to do business with you. So if you've got some time, take a couple of minutes and maybe listen through some of the recordings. Now, this is harder to do if you haven't freed up your time. So how do you free up your time? We've already talked about this. Do the specialty procedures that generate 4x to 20x the amount of revenue in the same amount of time. That frees up your time. And you can either choose to work a couple days a week, or you can then choose to roll that on over, get associates that free up your time so that you can now work on the practice rather than in the practice. And you can now really dig down and find those small hinges that swing big doors. And I promise you, the fewer times that you make it harder for people to do business with you, you will see your profits soar. Because I promise you, there are areas in your office that you don't even realize are happening that you put up roadblocks stopping people from giving you money. And you won't even know they're there. I'd said in another podcast not too long ago about the fact that I didn't even know that we had switched to this numbering system to call in, and they had the numbering system all screwed up. And it was a total disaster. And it didn't happen I didn't find out about it until I happened to just call into the office because I needed to talk to one of the ladies. And I don't remember why it was, but it doesn't matter. The point is I listened to it and I didn't know what button to push. Was I supposed to push 1, 2, 3, 4? I didn't even know, and I own the damn place. I guarantee you there's at least one area where you think everything's going perfectly fine and swimmingly, and it's screwed up beyond all belief. And mine was the phones. And I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely mortified. And it cost me new patients. I know it did. And how much is a new patient worth? And if it's patients, plural, that's tens of thousands of dollars, at least over the lifetime of that patient. So there are areas where you are making it harder for the patient to do business with you. And the more times you have that in your office, the less money you're going to make. If it's easier for the patient, it'll be easier for the front desk. And if it's easier for the front desk, it'll be easier for you. I promise you. Okay? So try to find those roadblocks. Try to listen to what it is that your team is doing, because I guarantee you they're saying things to your patients that you would be mortified to hear, just like when I called my office. Okay? All right, so that's all I got for you today. If you can, like I said, leave a review, hit that subscribe button, head over to titaniumpractice.com and get signed up for the Insiders newsletter, and I will talk to you next time. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
You've been listening to the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Please hit the like and subscribe button and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Titanium Practice. Questions or comments? Send an email to info@titaniumpractice.com. Join us next time to help turn your average practice into a titanium practice.